What's up again, everybody? Today we're going to review all of the VYNNSET cards, all the Shadow Runeblade cards. Heck, we'll probably even throw the Runeblade cards in. But before we do, let's open this package that we got from LSS. Is there like a pull thing? Is there a way to crack this quickly? I don't know. We'll find a way. Life finds a way. I started playing a Jurassic World Evolution 2 just with my kids, and so life finds a way constantly in that game. All right, here we go. Cracked it open. We did it. We're successful at opening boxes. We do that on the channel a lot. I have a playmat. Oh, and it's the one. And look, some cards that got stuck on tape. Ooh, geez. Ooh, I got stuck on the adhesive. This playmat, absolutely stunning. Beautiful. Stunning little playmat there. Why are my hands so orange? Okay, that is markedly better. It is quite bright, but it is markedly better. Okay, and then they sent us a couple of cards, and let's see what we got. Ooh, that one I was not expecting. That's interesting. Check this out. We got a Diabolic Offering. Let's get that out of the old sleeve here. Oh my gosh, that's a cold foil. I hadn't looked at what other people got just because I wanted to kind of save the surprise for myself. This playmat, by the way, Nazareth, I think one of the coolest arts in this set. Look at that beauty. That is something else. And then we got some other ones. Let's see what else we got. Oh, this is perfect timing. Let's go, because we received none other than our own version of VYNNSET. There she is. Not cold foil. I think it's just a plain old VYNNSET, majestic, but we're going to talk about her today, so it's a good thing we opened this up. This was, of course, the card that I got to spoil, along with... whoa! Oh my gosh, look at this. I didn't realize this would come in this finish. This is really cool. This is an extended art rainbow foil version of Widespread Annihilation. And it looks like it's not a promo. This is a majestic you can pull in the set. That is really cool. Not cold foil. It does look very suspiciously cold foil, which is really cool. That is a really cool looking card. I think the art on this is absolutely amazing, and Reza did a really beautiful job on this one. But extended art, you can pull that in the set. So again, thank you so much, LSS, for allowing me to kind of participate in the spoiler season. It is one of my favorite times of any, I guess, part of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year when it comes to Flesh and Blood, and I really appreciate the opportunity to spoil something every season, and hopefully people enjoyed that video. Now, let's go ahead and rate every single Runeblade, Shadow Runeblade, VYNNSET card. Alright, so huge shout out to Fabrary for really taking the time, effort, and energy to collecting all of these. I'm going to give the ratings that I give based on a 5-star system. One being it is a glorified cup coaster, if you will. You put your cup on it so that you don't get your table dirty. 5 is the second coming of Starvo, and 3 is like, yeah, I would probably play that as a solid role player in the deck. So we're looking for like 3s and 4s. 2's a little undervalued. That sort of thing is sort of where we're sitting at. So let's begin by taking a look as we pass through all of these at VYNNSET. If you didn't watch the spoiler video I put out, she's essentially a Shadow Runeblade hero with 4 intellect, 40 health that banishes a card from her hand to create a runechant token. You have to banish a card, and if you banish a card, then you create a runechant token. And there's a lot of people, myself included at first, that saw that as a detriment, and I think that's the wrong viewing of it at all. It is not necessarily a detriment, but we'll talk about it in a minute. Whenever you play a Shadow non-attack action card, you can pay a life, and if you pay a life, then you basically make your next runechant effect unpreventable. Okay, so there's 2 little things that we can lean on when deck building. By the way, if you would like to see it, I am going to put together a video talking about how I analyze and then build a deck for a new hero. This is something that I've been doing, obviously, as new heroes have been released constantly, but particularly over the last couple of sets, I've had the very wonderful opportunity, and I've been very lucky to have spoiled a couple of new heroes. And so when I've sat down to look at those heroes and try to talk about them in a spoiler video, I have to go through this process. So I'm going to share that process with you in a separate video, but we'll talk a little bit about it as I go through evaluating her cards. Essentially what we want to do is we want to analyze what she does and see how these cards kind of fit within that mold. And as you can see, yes, you do lose a card from your hand every turn, so you're effectively playing a 3-card hand, but not really, depending on how you build the deck, because you will be able to play things from Banished Zone via the Rune Gate mechanic, or if the card just says you may play this from your Banished Zone. So if you're pushing one of those cards into your Banished, you're not playing a 3-card hand, quote unquote, because you're playing a 4-card hand. It's just that one of those cards is face up and revealed to your opponent, and it generated you a rune chant. So keeping that in mind, let's begin with Flail of Agony. This is a solid 3-star card. I think this you could even probably consider it a 4-star, being more of the staple style thing. Maybe a 4 is a better argument, simply because this weapon allows you to play a certain style if that's the way you want to take VYNNSET. It doesn't allow you to build up rune chants, but what it does allow you to do is defend heavily with your hand and still have something to do to ping your opponent with. You're losing a life, they're most likely losing a life, because it makes them, it de-incentivizes them from blocking, basically. And it gets you a rune chant token, so it flips the rune chant token economy a little bit, in that you're spending a rune chant to do 1-in-1, but you are generating a rune chant on the back end, so then the next time you do this, it could be 2-in-1, assuming that you had a card in hand. But this is a really solid starting weapon. And I should talk about the other weapon now, too, in my opinion. I think it's good to talk about both of these together. It should be down here, right? I think I saw it earlier. Where is the other weapon? Where is the other weapon? Here it is. Scepter of Pain is deceptively good. This card is deceptively good. Why? Well, if you have the resources to use this effect, you can essentially use this as your damage dealing each turn and rune chant generation each turn without expending previous rune chants. And that is incredibly good, because you're able to bank up those rune chants for larger attacks like rune gate effects, or if you wanted to play more of an OTK strategy, which I haven't really messed around with as far as deck building is concerned yet. But this would be a weapon that you can push some amount of damage with while also building up rune chants. So I'm giving this a 4-star as well. So I think both weapons, very solid and very good role players. This card, oh my god, I love this card so much. This is like a Windmill Slam 4-star for me. I love this because it allows you, at instant speed, pay 1, to banish this book and create an Eloquence token. If you don't know what an Eloquence token is, it's got some interesting implications, but in general, an Eloquence token allows you to play a non-attack action card and give go again to that non-attack action card, which means cards in this kind of class archetype can gain go again. Things like Funeral Moon can gain go again. And also, you can play Tome of Fiendal and give it go again right away, which is really, really good. This card, a Windmill Slam 4-star card. It's a majestic, it is an offhand, and I want to see this thing in cold foil because I think it's going to look incredible. You do destroy this and it does become a Blood Debt card in your Banished Zone, which means it's going to ping you after you use it, but I think you're okay. It's a small price to pay for some very big power, and it comes with Arcane Barrier 1 just attached to it, and that is really, really good. Next up, we have my spoiler card, along with 2 others that fit into a cycle, really. And Widespread Annihilation, I think, is also a really Windmill Slam 4-star card. In like preliminary messing around with like experimentation and testing, this card feels incredible. Having a blue block 3 that attacks for 6 in a pinch and is able to fairly easily rune gate is really good. This card is really solid. And then if you can get your opponent to take some damage prior to this, or if you just send a rune chant and they don't block all the rune chants, they lose a card from their hands just straight up. So you're stealing cards from their hand, whether or not they stop the rune chants, stop this damage, or don't stop anything, just take 6 plus the rune chants, which is effectively 10. By the way, if you're not looking at this correctly, this is either a 6 attack that you pay 4 for, or it is a 10 attack for free because you've built 4 rune chants. It's actually fairly straightforward to get to 4 rune chants in this deck. Yeah, this is a really good card. This is a 0 for 10 if you can rune gate it. And yeah, it is actually straight up okay to rune gate this card, especially on certain play patterns. So this card is a solid 4-star. Maybe the closest to 5-star we've gotten thus far. Widespread Destruction, I think, feels like a good solid 3-star. I actually did put this into the deck, into one of the versions of the like preliminary decks, just because it is a yellow pitch 3-block card. And yes, it can come easily with a Rune Gate effect that attacks for 6. It's a popper as well. It just fits the roles very nicely. Its effect of banishing a card from the arsenal feels pretty decent, and it allows you to attack with it and then set your own arsenal while your opponent loses an arsenal. I think this one feels really good overall, and I like it at 3 stars, and it's worth playing. And then Widespread Ruin feels really good at 4 stars as well because it is a 2 for 6. The effect itself doesn't necessarily target your opponent's hand or your arsenal. It targets the top of their deck, but the benefit of targeting the top of their deck is that you're, in general, taking something away from them. It's not like as targeted as, well, the cards that you're going to play next turn are neutered, or you lost your arsenal and now you have to play the cards in your hand only. In this case, they're losing something that they weren't going to see for a turn, and that is less good, but it's easier to play this at 2 for 6. And you're still taking some disruption and applying it to your opponent. And that is where I think VYNNSET is going to be living, in this sort of damage plus disruption archetype. And I think Widespread Ruin does a pretty good job of that. So I like this at 4 star because you can run 3 of them, and it's a 2 for 6, which is really good. Oftentimes it's 0 for 6. Now, or 0 for 8 if you're counting the rune chants that go with it, right? Okay, Funeral Moon. This is an interesting card because it says you can play this from your Banish Zone, which is very good. Keep in mind it is a 3-block non-attack action card, which can trigger her second ability. And you can pay the life, and you can make rune chants unblockable if that's what you want. I did find in preliminary testing that oftentimes I don't necessarily care to pay the life. It really kind of depends on what your opponent has been doing during the game. But if they don't respect rune chants anyway, then oftentimes you don't have to pay the life. It is sort of just like an added bonus if you choose to pay the life, make it unblockable, and then you get some value. But this says if a hero has lost health this turn, you may play this as though it were an instant and you create a rune chant token. This does not have go again, and it can sit in your Banish Zone and you can use it whenever you wish. You have to give this go again, or you have to end your turn with this card, or you have to guarantee that your opponent has lost health. But there are some really fun little things that you can do on top of this to just gain the rune chant. This feels like a 3-star card to me. It can be a little clunky, so it's like right in the middle. And the reason it feels like a 3-star card is because it allows you to create a rune chant on the back of an attack, like after the attack is resolved. If they've taken any damage whatsoever, you can play this at instant speed. Don't have to worry about like action points not refreshing or anything like that. Play this at instant speed, make a rune chant, and set yourself up perhaps for another, like rune gated attack. Next up, we have Requiem for the Damned, another 0-cost majestic 3-block non-attack. And this one is really interesting because, again, it says you can play it from your Banish Zone and you can play it at instant speed if your opponent has lost health. But again, this one just creates an Eloquence token. And that's where some interesting things can happen, because if you create an Eloquence token and then just sit on that, it allows you to line up big possible plays. It also allows you to do something like give Funeral Moon go again and play it at instant speed, or give another copy of Requiem for the Damned go again and instant speed and bank action points. And that to me is sort of the hidden tech between these two cards, is if you can give them go again via either the book or another copy of Requiem for the Damned, it allows you to store up an action point, because you play this at instant speed if you can force your opponent to lose life. You create an Eloquence token, and then you gave this go again off of a previous Eloquence token, or you gave this one go again off of Eloquence token, and the go again refreshes even though you've played at instant speed. And in that way, you can gain 2 action points, which means you can pseudo play like Chain. And that brings up one of my favorite kind of like connections between VYNNSET here and the previous Chain. I think, this is just my personal opinion, that this is one of the most beautifully designed heroes that Flesh and Blood has ever released, because it is doing a fantastic job of paying homage to the original chain by doing some of the things that he did very iconically, banking up action points but in different ways, playing cards from Banish Zone as your hand, but you have to do it over a certain period of time by putting them into the Banish Zone. It is a beautiful design of a hero, and it's something that I've only just started to really appreciate the more that I've messed around with her with these new cards. As far as Requiem for a Dam is concerned, I do think that this is a 3-star card. I think both of these are solid role players, solid fillers in the deck. I don't want to call them filler cards because they're not. They can do some great things, but they also, if you don't enable them, they end up just being create a rune chant from your Banish Zone after you created a rune chant, and that's not bad, right? Or create an Eloquence token at the end of your turn from your Banish Zone so that you don't take the blood debt, and that's not bad, but it ends your turn that way, and you start a new turn after that. Oblivion. Oblivion is interesting because this card is fairly approachable to achieve, and then Nazareth that you get is just a nice body wherever Nazareth is on this. There she is. It's just a nice body on the field, a 6/6, right? And then it costs nothing to attack, and then her effect isn't necessarily something you're going to trigger against most heroes. So you're just looking at this as like a 6/6 body that you get for free, which is super solid. But you look at the card that generates Nazareth and Oblivion, and it doesn't block. It is at instant speed kind of effect, but you do have to create 6 rune chants, and I did find 6 to be one of those cards, or one of those breakpoints that is a little hard to get to, which I think is exactly what Oblivion should be. If it were super easy to make 6 rune chants, then this card would be kind of nuts and annoying, but it's not. It gives you exactly as much work as you need to get to it, and then it feels like a payoff. But overall, this to me feels like a 3-star card simply because it doesn't have block attached to it, and it gives you a pretty decent payoff. But it's nothing. I would not say it's underpowered or anything like that. This hits perhaps right where it should in whatever I've experienced thus far, and so it feels like a nice little standard 3-star card that generates you a 6 body, which is nothing to scoff at, and that's an important thing to note. Now we come to the cards that I think a lot of people are going to maybe have some differing opinions on. Deathly Delight, to me, let's just explain the card first. It's a rune gate card, so that if you have the rune chants equal to or above the cost of this card, so if you have 2 or above rune chants, then this can come out of your Banish Zone for free. Otherwise, it lives in your Banish Zone until you play it via the rune gate effect. So just to keep in mind, these cards cannot be played from Banish Zone just straight up to pay their cost. You must have the rune gate effect active in order to play them from Banished. Now, when this one, like its effect itself, when this combat chain closes, you gain life equal to the number of heroes who have lost life this turn. Now, if you lose life and your opponent takes damage, then you gain 1, okay? Or 2, I should say. Because you've lost a life, your opponent's lost a life, you gain 2, so you net 1 life gain. If your opponent loses a life and you didn't lose a life, then you gain 1, so net 1 life gain. If you lost a life but your opponent fully blocks this out, well, then you gain 1 and you gain back the life gain. So this is either a card that is just a 2 for 5, or it's a 2 for 5 and gain a life. So like a weird kind of underpowered version of like Fiendal's Fighting Spirit, which is kind of cool design. Like that's a fun like design card, and this blocks for 3, and then the cycle goes down to 4 and then down to 3. I personally think this is more of a 2-star card than anything else, simply because I didn't find myself needing the life gain super hugely, especially depending on how you manage your blood debt. If you keep your blood debt banked up and you try to like play for a big blood debt kind of a bomb turn, then perhaps the life gain is more useful. And it's only 1. Remember, it's only going to be ever 1 life in a like classic constructed or a blitz match. In UPF, this is way better. But to me, these cards are like 2-star cards, and you can include them in your deck, especially because it's a 2-cost rune gate. And if you're like super into that, then it's easy to cast from the Banished. But it leaves a little bit to be desired overall for me in comparison to some other cards. Speaking of, I think Deathly Whale is like a 4-star slam dunk card. because of its effect. This is a 3-cost rune gate, so it's a little harder to get to, but a 3-cost rune gate deals 6, blocks 3, and then it says when the combat chain closes, create a rune chant tokens equal to the number of heroes who have lost health this turn. In other words, if you lose health on your turn and your opponent loses health on their turn, this is a 3-cost, 6 attack, gain 2 rune chants. And if you've Mauvrian Skies or given this go again with anything else, then all of a sudden those 2 rune chants can be used to play something like a Deathly Delight, a 2-cost rune gate from your banished zone. So this card is a huge enabler for other cards in VYNNSET because it generates those rune chants regardless of if it hits. That's the big point. Regardless of if it hits, this generates rune chants. And so to me, this card is a staple 4-star card in this deck, and I would consider running 9 of them because they're all block 3s, and the variety of pitch really helps you in a pinch. So this to me is a really big staple card. Next up, we have Envelop in Darkness in a cycle. This one costs 1. It is a Shadow Runeblade action that blocks 2. And it says create a rune chant token. The next attack action card you rune gate this turn gets +3 and go again. So this is one of the shadow cards, the shadow non-attack actions, that we can choose to trigger VYNNSET's effect on. If we wanted to, we could Envelop in Darkness, pay the life for VYNNSET, and then force through a rune chant. And this creates a rune chant token as well. And so with this card, plus the drop into the banished at the start of your turn effect, you can, like on a single turn, very easily get exactly 2 rune chants starting at 0 and be able to play any 2-cost rune gate card. Again, this is why I think a lot of people think Deathly Delight is a solid little card, because rune gating is very easy when you have cards that generate you a rune chant and you couple that with VYNNSET's latent ability. This card to me is a 3-star card though, simply because I don't want to pay 1 for it, and I find that the overall balance of the deck with 50 cards, depending on how you build it, but if you're including like 9 Mauvrian Skies or 6 Mauvrian Skies plus like the Shadow one that gives go again as well and +1, then you start to fill up very quickly on non-attacks. This is, though, one of the non-attacks that you can consider in your deck to be the enabler, I guess is the best way to say it, for VYNNSET's, push an unblockable rune chant damage. So to me, this is a 3-star card. I didn't include it. I tried including it, then I didn't include it, then I tried again. So I'm kind of waffling on this card myself, but the fact that it's a 1-cost create a rune chant is beneficial. It's just the 1 cost that scares me off of this. Rift Skitterer is a 3-cost 4-attack go again, rune gate go again, and to me this is a 2-star card. You can play this. It is not unplayable, but it's just to me a little bit too expensive to pay for the go again effect. It is close though to being a 1-star card in my opinion, simply because I look at this breakpoint and I can think of so many better ways to give go again to attacks than paying 3 rune chants or 3 cost from my hand to have a go again attack. And so to me, the Rift Seeker is not one that I want to include, but it is playable. You could technically do it. It's not something that's way out of the realm of possibility. Phantom Banshee at a 3 for 7 to me is also a 2-star card, which might be shocking to some people, but when I'm looking and evaluating these overall cards, I want the rune gate effects to have a secondary effect. I want them to do something along with their actual card. And so a 3 for 7 is a really good stat line, and you might consider playing the yellow 3 for 6 as well because it pitches yellow, the blue 3 for 5. But I didn't gravitate towards these cards because when I was including my rune gate effects, I was looking at like 9 total copies of Deathly Whale and a couple of the obviously 3 copies of each of these widespreads, and that takes up a large portion of your deck already. And so I looked at these Phantom Banshees and I said, okay, I could do 3 rune chants and a rune gate effect, or I could just pick a different card, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So for me, this is a 2-star card, but it is a possible throw in and include as a 3-star in a pinch if you want the extra damage from the red. Now, Phantom Wraith is the card that I include in its place because it is a 2 rune gate 6 attack. And yes, You look at this and you're like, why didn't you include the 2/5 and then gain a life? Well, because I wanted to push 6. And also this makes for easier poppers as well. And I do think that with the new Illusionist and Prism coming back, and with obviously dragons being a thing still, I think that having more poppers feels really, really good. So I included the Phantom Wraiths in place of the 2/5 Deathly Delights. And this to me is a 3-star card, and I like this one particularly. The yellow and the blue I didn't include as much of, but the red I included as a 3-star card in the deck. Now, this one's an interesting one. Okay, Putrid Stirrings. What do you think of when you look at this card? What do you think of? Because I'll tell you what I thought of. When you look at this card, maybe you think of just like a solid little buff that costs probably too much for it to be playable. But here's what I looked at. This is a blue block 3 buff by 3 go again non-attack Shadow Runeblade that we can trigger the effect of VYNNSET on. And yes, it costs 3 instead of 2, but it reminds me a lot of Earthlore Surge. I believe that's what it's called, Earthlore Surge, from the top of my head. I do this as I make the video. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Earthlore Surge Blue. This card is heavily played in Briar. Why? Well, because it's a blue fusible card that isn't too terribly expensive. And it unfortunately only blocks 2, but it does block 3 if you've created an embodiment, which you oftentimes have. It's a buff for 3, and it has go again, and you can fuse with it. So it's basically a buff that generally blocks 3 that has some ancillary benefit. So now let's go back. Here we go. Go, go, go. This to me, Putrid Stirrings Blue, is exactly the same. It's a blue block 3. It costs 3 instead of 2, but the benefit that you gain is that you can play this from your hand, or you can play it from your banished zone as well. And yes, it only buffs your Runegate cards, but oftentimes that's okay. That is absolutely okay. And it has go again, which is super fantastic. To me, this is surprisingly a 4-star card. Now, I don't know about the yellow. I would probably call that a 2-star card. And the red, I'd probably call a 3-star card, believe it or not. But this to me gets like sort of the rainbow of ratings. I like this one a lot. In fact, every time I've built like 4 VYNNSET decks trying to figure it out. And every time I come back to this card and I'm like, you know, it's a blue block 3. It could give me a buff in a pinch if I want it. I could use it for VYNNSET's effects. I just throw it in. And every time I come back to the fact that this card is just good. And then you get to the yellow and I'm like, no, I'm not interested. And then the red I've considered multiple times because it is such a big buff. But really this blue one is the absolute slam dunk in my opinion. So that's all the Shadow Runeblade cards. And keep in mind that there are other Shadow Runeblade cards from previous, the Monarch set, of course, the previous Monarch set, that can allow you to enable the pay a life and push rune chant damage, but a lot of these cards don't necessarily enable that. I mean, unless you're looking at Envelop in Darkness or Putrid Stirrings, these two appear as well. So when you're looking about to evaluate this new hero, you look at how easy some of these effects are to trigger and how much you care about some of these effects triggering. And sometimes you care about the secondary one, but it's really oftentimes a little bit of bonus. This one, you look at and you're like, that is a perceived downside, but again, you can make it a little bit of an upside depending on how you play. Now, there are some cards in the Shadow kind of side of things that we should very much touch on, and maybe we should just rate all the Shadow cards. Should we rate all the Shadow cards as well? I think we should. But first, let's do the Runeblade cards. This card's good. This card's like a nice like Windmill Slam 4-star card. You just put it in there. Why? It blocks 3 and it has Arcane Barrier 2. Are you kidding me? That's insane. That's incredible. Do it. It's great. Bequest the Vast Beyond. Costs you nothing. It blocks 2. It is a Viscerize specialization, so we can't play it. Skip. Runic Reckoning. Now, this is a card we can play. Cost 1, but it costs nothing. Just about every turn. And the next Runeblade attack action card you play this turn gets +3, and it blocks 3. This is a 4-star glue card. If this were blue, it would be even more of a glue card. but it's not. You throw this in the deck. Why? It's a block 3. It costs nothing almost all the time. Period. End of story. Actually, all the time it costs nothing, and it gives you a buff on one of your attacks. It's like, why would you not include that? It's perfect. It's perfect. Okay, now let's go back up here and let's hit these shadow cards. Underrated is Dabble in Darkness because it is a 0 for 5, but depending on how you build your deck, it could be something like a 0 for 2, which is not great. Because it gets -X, where X is the pitch value of the card banished that you banish off the top of your deck. So there is a little bit of a downside to this if you're playing a lot of blues, but if you're trying for like a red line build for like VYNNSET, which I have put together on accident, and then I was like, I don't know about this. If you're trying for that, this might be just straight up good, right? It's a 0 for 4, and it's a 3 block, which of course is nice. Other than that, though, I'm not crazy about it. I think it's underrated in that respect, but I didn't put it into my deck. I think this is a 3-star card, though. So you could build a redline version of the deck, and this would be a nice little like 4-star card in that deck, but in every other deck, I think it's a 2 or a 3. Okay, Brendan Patrick told us to remember Oldham and all the solid blue cards that like had flexibility when looking at this card, and he's correct. I think that is a solid way of considering it. It also is an action card, a non-attack action card, so it does trigger the VYNNSET effect. It can come from Banished Zone. In fact, it should come from Banished Zone because when you play it, it comes in with a Doom counter from Banished Zone, and then it stops your opponent from drawing cards like normally, and instead they banish cards from the top of the deck and they play it from the Banished Zone. Why does that matter? Well, Rangers can't play cards from Banished because they have to load their arrows, right? So that's kind of good. I like this card. It's a 0 for 3. It's a 0 cost 3 block blue pitch card, and I did include 3 of it in my deck when trying to like flatten out the blues, because when I built my version of VYNNSET, I tried for a nice like red to blue split where the deck is mostly those two things, and this fits that to the T. Dimensional Vortex costs 1 because you're going to be playing this from Banished Zone, and it banishes the arsenal. This to me is a 2, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a 2. It feels like it could be a 3. I feel like this is one of those weird toolbox cards that you just leave sitting over in your Banished Zone, and you just wait for your opponent to like really kind of arsenal something you think that they're really gonna like, and then you pay 1 for this, you pop it out there, and you get rid of their arsenal and you try to catch them unawares. Also, if you play this, you can make your next rune chant thing you could pay the life and make your next rune chant thing unblockable, but it does not have go again, so you kind of have to give it go again, otherwise it just ends there. So to me, this feels like a 2-star card, but you could probably make it work as a 3-star card if you just consider it like it's like a weird sideboard thing. You just throw it over there in the Banished and you just wait, and then you make all Kano players sad because you get rid of their Wildfire. Gosh dang it. Hungering Demagon. It is a 2-cost 6 that does not RuneGate, but it does allow you to play it from Banished Zone if you are playing against someone with your soul. So to me, this is like a 2-star card, maybe a 1-star card. Simply because this is literally looking to play against light heroes. Otherwise, this is just like a 2 for 6, and it banishes a card from their soul. So it's like a no-text 2 for 6 with Blood Debt. So like, there's a lot of kind of not great stuff going on here. You can't RuneGate it, and you just have to play it from hand. It is a 3 block, so there is that. Because it's a class card, you do get the benefit of that. And then, of course, the other ones also, to me, just kind of feel like they just feel like 1 to 2 star cards. The only, and I don't want to be super punch up on this card, the only benefit you get is you could consider playing the blue as a blue pitch, like 2 for 6 or 2 for 4, sorry, blue pitch 2 for 4 that blocks 3. But honestly, I would rather just play the one that generates 2 rune chants. As a blue that blocks 3. Grim Feast, surprisingly good, actually. I think this is like a 2 to a 3-star card. Like, it's a little undervalued or underpowered for what you would want it for, but it's like Sigil of Solace, except you have to pay 1 for it, and it has to come from the Banished Zone to be able to pay 1 for it. Otherwise, it's like a pitch a blue, gain 3, and that doesn't feel great. And it doesn't have go again as well, so that's why I kind of hover in that 2-star card range. But I think that there's some people would like this kind of effect in general, and maybe try playing it in the deck as like sort of just ways to gain life and try to, you know, prevent your own life loss. But to me, it's a little undervalued, a little underpowered. Art is sick, though. Really, really sick. Really good art. Okay. This card I have done the most backflipping on out of all of the VYNNSET cards I've played with. Vile Inquisition is a 4-star card. Is it a 5? No, it's a 4. I can't justify it. I've backflipped on this card so many times. I've flip-flopped, right? And the reason is this. All 3 of these copies, right? So red, yellow, and blue all do the same thing. They force your opponent to lose a life. They all do the same thing. They block 3. They all do the same thing. They cost nothing from banished. And they enable you to play straight out of your banished zone for free and trigger the effect. They don't have go again, which is the downside, the biggest downside. But I've found myself on multiple occasions going, you know what? I have go again from like Mauvrian Skies. I have this that I was able to sink into my banished zone at the beginning of my turn. I'll just throw this at the end. I'll banish the top card of the deck no matter. I'll make them lose cards that they're going to play with over the course of the game, possibly lose a life, and in a pinch, it just blocks 3. And the blue pitches for 3. The red, not great, but the yellow pitches for 2. I actually included 6 copies of this in my deck. I think this is a 4-star card. Its biggest downside and biggest detraction is that it doesn't have go again. And that is the unfortunate part of things, but you know, you could also just play this off of the boots if you wanted to at instant speed. You don't generally want to do that because you want the boots for like the second action point build up. But yeah, that's a solid 4-star card, especially the blue. Like the blue is underratedly good. Soul Butcher is a 2 for 6 that looks for the soul. So again, and this blocks 2. So I think this is a 1-star card. Unfortunately, I don't think that I would be playing this anytime soon. Same thing here and here. Soul Cleaver is a 2 for 6 that looks for stuff in the soul. It does get go again if you're playing. Here's the thing. If the meta goes crazy high with Prism and Bolton, then these cards do have a lot more value because you're more likely to see the 2 for 6 with go again gain value. So this one to me is a 2-star card, but like by and large, like this effect, getting +2, you don't want that in your deck, particularly if it has no utility and can't block for 3 against most matchups. But Soul Cleaver will throw in there because it can gain go again, and the red is like a 2 for 6 go again. If you're up against, we'll give it a 2-star rating. Beseech the Demigod is one I've also flip-flopped on a decent bit. It's a 0 cost with go again, blocks for 2, and it allows you to basically choose any attack and then give it +3 until the end of the turn. And this is also one that you can sink into and like into the banished zone, but unfortunately you can't play it from banished, and that's what pulls it back a little bit. This was a 3-star card for a little bit, and then I started cutting it, so now it's like a 2-star card for me. But it is a go again shadow action that can enable the Runechant ping. And so if you're really into that effect, then these are possible adds. And then Tear Through a Portal is also a 2-star, but this one I feel like has the most possibility of trending upward, specifically depending on how you build your deck. If you build a lot of reds, then this can give the red go again. If you build the deck with like a lot of reds and blues, then you might consider playing some of these because they have go again, and because it allows you to enable on any given turn this shadow action, you know, thing. You can't play it, of course, but you can drop it in and enable the Runechant unblockability of it. But yeah, this is a 2-star card to me as well. You could play it, but I don't plan on playing it. And that concludes all of the Shadow, all of the Runeblade, and all of the Shadow Runeblade cards minus these cards. And these cards are straight up kind of generic. Though I will say this. This is a, if you're looking at this, this is a block 2 Blood Debt, just headpiece. It's actually pretty good. This is a block 2 of any type of damage, chest piece. This is a block 2 of any type of damage, arm piece and leg piece. So these are actually do have a solid utility. They're almost like Spell Void, which is interesting because like Spell Void you could trigger and then stop arcane damage, but then Spell Void didn't block physical. This you can't trigger, but it can block physical or arcane, which is really cool. You just can't choose when you want to use it. It just kind of happens on its own. But I like these cards. I think they're really cool. I don't think they're worth giving star ratings because it really just depends on the hero, and they can, of course, be played by a lot of different heroes, including Leviah and things like that. So if you enjoy this type of video and you want to hear more of this, I know it's a longer one, but if this is something you enjoy, make that number go up and let me know in a comment below, and this is something that I can do more of. And if you want to support the channel by, of course, hitting the button or becoming a patron, feel free, because we'll be giving out patron rewards for last month and then this month coming up soon, and we're going to crack a lot of boxes of Dusk Till Dawn and kind of give those out as well. So as always, everybody, thanks for watching.